Hello, how's it going? Welcome back, everyone. Matt here from UK Nets fans, and I'm joined, as ever, by Aidan McConaughey and Cammy Anderson for another episode of BK to UK, the British Brooklyn Nets podcast. On this episode, we'll be recapping last week's games against the Suns, Raptors, Pacers, and Trailblazers, discussing Coach of the Year rumours, Mike James' 10-day contract winding up, the battle for the first seeds, your listener questions, and much, much more. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram at UK Nets Fans, the pod itself on Twitter at BK2UK Pod, and check us out on YouTube where you can watch back all of our previous episodes. We're also now streaming live on Twitch, so you can come and join us there too by searching for UK Nets Fans. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Lads, it's been a busy week, Nets news-wise, hence the bit of a mouthful for our intro. What I thought we would start on is there's some rumblings. You know, we're in the last stretch of the season. It's award season. One of those awards is Coach of the Year, and there's quite a lot of interest in New York. So, what do you think about the rumors that have been bubbling away?
Yeah, I mean, we are in that stage now where it just seems to be what everyone's talking about is who's the favourites to win all the awards. And the Nets have been a bit unlucky because obviously with the amount of injuries we've had, we've not really seen many of our big names being included in the race now for MVP and things like that, which is a bit disappointing. But yeah, Steve Nash is rightfully being mentioned in the Coach of the Year chat at the moment. And he's probably not going to win it, but I think at the end of the day, with the cards that he's been dealt this season, he definitely has to be in there. I just think he seems to have adjusted so well to every single scenario that he's done, and he's been excellent. I mean, you've just got to think that he's a rookie coach at the end of the day, and he's had to come in and coach some of the best veteran stars in the world. And he's literally had to come in and do that in his first gig as a head coach. And to come in, and obviously the amount of brutal injuries we've had this year, obviously we had a mammoth trade for James Harden where he had a team of stars that came in, and then we had to trade LeVert, and we had to trade Allen, and we had to trade Taurean Prince. And he was working around these guys, and he had to pretty much start from the beginning. And then, of course, so he's managed to adjust there. And yeah, I think he's probably not in the conversation as the favourite purely because he's obviously had that star power there from the beginning, and he's had the coaching staff. He's had D'Antoni there behind him as well. So he's never seemed to be in the kind of front runner when, I don't know, if you put him in another team and he had that record, he certainly would be the front runner in my books. But obviously, Quinn Snyder's rightful in there. Monty Williams is rightful in there, who I think will end up winning it for the job he's done with the Suns, which is potentially one of the best turnarounds we've ever seen in the NBA. But yeah, it's nice to see Nash getting mentioned because at the end of the day, we talk about the stars every week when we come on here and we gush over the Durants, the Hardens, the Irvins, but that guy is in there adjusting everything and making the decisions at the end of the day. And you've got to say, I don't have too many gripes about him this year. I don't think he's made too many mistakes. I think he's had a really good year, and I've enjoyed seeing the rotations that he's put out there and some of the decisions he's made. So yeah, I can't complain too much at all.
I mean, yeah, we've seen him. Yeah, so we've seen him progress a lot. I think as you said, it's a bit harsh on him to maybe not be considered the favourite of a rookie coach coming in. I don't know if it's fair to say that he shouldn't be in with a shout as being the favourite, given he had the star players, because at the end of the day, you could argue it's just as hard to deal with the stars as it is dealing with a absolutely rubbish team. And I think we have seen him kind of from the first few games where he wasn't really getting the timeouts. And he's really come on as a coach. I think, as Aidan says, it probably will be Monty Williams that gets it, but Nash, I think, certainly deserves to be heavily praised, even if he has had a fantastic team to kind of work with.
I think it's funny, isn't it? It's like you hear the conversation around James Harden or KD and why they're not in the MVP conversation. Obviously, they both missed a lot of time, but one of the arguments is that they've got so much help. It's easy to be good. So I guess you can see the same argument with that with Mike D'Antoni in his ear and Ime Udoka, Jacques Vaughn, who I think we'd all have been quite happy if he stepped in as our head coach at the beginning of the year. So yeah, he won't win it. I I think Monty Williams is a good shout. Maybe Chris Paul even should get it for coming in and taking that Suns team by the scruff of the neck. But yeah, I love your point about it's also pretty much as difficult to deal with a locker room full of superstars as it is a locker room full of guys that are still trying to establish themselves in our league. But yeah, he's done an incredible job regardless. So we're definitely happy with what he's got going for us Nets. But talking about people who are just trying to make a name for themselves in this league, we're talking on Sunday, and as of today, I believe that Mike James's 10-day contract has come to an end. Obviously, I think he's still available to play this Bucks game. But Cammy, how do you think he's done with this dress rehearsal for the Nets?
I mean, I don't think he's too new numbers. The numbers movement those that the beach at you 7.4 points, 2 rebounds, 4.2 assists in just under 20 minutes a night, 36% from the field and 27 from free. Yes, you'd maybe want those numbers to be better, but they're also far from the worst in the team. He's kind of sitting middle of the pack for them and ahead of some of the kind of guys he's competing for minutes against, like your Chris Josers, your Tyler Johnsons. Obviously, Chris Jones is likely out for the remainder of the season, and TJ's just kind of recently back from injury. But yeah, he's shown that he can be another option. We've seen him kind of have a few good games. Kind of Alizé Johnson came in, had 1 or 2 good games in his 10-day contract, and had a few kind of poor games. And James has kind of had something similar. Assist against the Raptors, followed that up with 15 points in the loss to the Blazers. And yeah, I think the match the kind of pair 36 numbers, can I had a wee look at them. His pair 36s have him with almost 8 assists and just deliver that off the bench. I think we'd all be quite happy to see him stick around when, as I say, the other numbers from other guys who've actually got contract team maybe aren't as good. Yes, have played more, so the numbers will be a bit different. But I think Mike James, I would like to see a bit more of him, whether it's another 10-day contract, sure, but it would be something that I'd be open to. He's certainly not been like a Noah Vonleh or one of those other randoms I've completely forgotten existed, who came in, done nothing in 3 or 4 minutes on the court and have never been seen again. So yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Per, but I'd certainly like to see Mike James a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think you're right. He's definitely going to get a second 10-day. And I think it's now a matter of when. It's not if, it's when. I saw Nets Daily put quite an interesting tweet out earlier on saying they don't need to give him this contract at midnight tonight when it runs out. They can wait a couple of days. And it makes total sense for them to wait to say the morning of the Bucks game, just so that they can get that extra couple of days of getting a look at him, because it could be the difference of playing another game. So yeah, they can be quite tactical. And something else that I've not taken into consideration is he can't go to another contender now and sign and play in the playoffs because he's already played for the Nets. So it's quite helpful. And I mean, I've been really impressed with him in total. And I think one of the most underrated things that I've noticed is they've brought a guy from the EuroLeague who was playing at a near MVP level. So his confidence is sky high. Like it's so high. You can see it on the court. He came in, I'm thinking of that Raptors game in particular. I'll go on to speak about a bit about that later on. But the confidence he had in the fourth quarter, he looked like he was meant to be there. And Cammy mentioned Noah Vonleh and a couple of the other guys. They just didn't look like they were there to fit. And even thought Andre Robertson didn't look like he was good enough to be in this team, which was a bit of a shame because it was what we were looking for at the time. But I think with Harden potentially being out for another couple of weeks, Choza and potentially Spencer out for the rest of the season, it makes total sense to keep him in there. And I would like to see him be there as an option, especially if we do go into the playoffs and say James Harden isn't all there for the first series. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, I definitely think it's a case of when and it's not if. And I reckon they'll probably sign him on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It's a really great sort of business move by the Nets to have this kind of a 10-day, a second 10-day, and then kind of putting that off because then they're still businessmen at the end of the day, and it's although they chuck around tens of millions of dollars like it's nothing, pennies count. So it's smart the way they're doing it. But yeah, I definitely think he's done enough to to help us in come playoff time. And, he's that energy guy off the bench. And as you say, his confidence is off the charts, as you rightly say. But yeah, he's going to have to be confident, because this week the Nets clinched a playoff spot. In years gone by, this would have been a one of these kind of moments to celebrate. But, I think we've got loftier ambitions this year. So it was one of those that was cool, but, just with thinking finals and NBA finals. So, it's just one of those, another box to tick off. But one of those teams we're hopefully going to be we will be seeing, I assume, in the playoffs is the Sixers. But the question still remains, who's going to get this 1 seed? So what I thought I'd do is just have a little think of, what's the battle for the 1 seed is on, and discuss that a little bit now. But in a time where fans are only just coming back into arenas and home court advantage counts for less, you kind of question, is there a value in this 1 seed or not? I think that the Sixers, having sort of coming off last season, they were aiming for that 1st seed last year and they fell short. They fell way short. They finished 6th in the East. And obviously they got bounced in the playoffs pretty handily. They got super busy on the offseason, bringing in Danny Green and Dwight Howard from the Lakers, and Seth Curry for a bit of perimeter shooting. So I think they really need this top seed, and they've been the top seed pretty much all year. Obviously, we've snuck ahead of them now, but I think do they not get this 1 seed and sort of lock it up for the rest of the year? That will almost feel like a bit of a failure and feel like they've been pipped at the punch. And I think that the Nets have a lot less to prove, in a funny kind of way. Sort of clearly the more talented roster. So maybe standings don't really reflect their ability as much. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, it looks pretty nailed on that the Sixers are eyeing up that 1 seed, because Daryl Morey, having been pretty... his tweets have come in for a lot of criticism, if you think back a little bit in the not too recent history. But he tweeted just the Blazers logo after they beat the Nets. So it's definitely one of those rent-free moments of a tweet right there. But I wanted to know what you guys think. Now we've clinched our playoff place. Are we concerned about sort of finishing first? And what would your ideal road to the finals be? I don't know who wants to go first.
Yeah, I'll go.
I'll let you go first, Aidan, because I'm debating myself between who I want.
No worries. Yeah, I am concerned, and I've mentioned it a number of times. I think the finishing first or second is massive. I think there's such a difference in the route to getting to the finals for the team who finishes first and the team who finishes second. And yeah, I don't think the Nets have taken it seriously enough at the points. Like, I was going to put a tweet out earlier, and I was like, no, I'll save it for the podcast, because I don't think it's been taken seriously enough of the fact that the Nets could be resting certain players at the moment in back-to-backs and whatnot, which is fair enough, because back-to-backs are an absolute nightmare. Let's not beat around the bush. They are a nightmare. We've had so many. But resting players when they're not in back-to-backs, there's a chance that they're going to be playing more games of basketball in the playoffs, because they're resting players now, because they could finish second, and then say we get the Heat in the first round, and then it'll need to be the Bucks in the second round, and then the Sixers. You're talking games, and that could potentially add 10 games to like the 10 games, not 10 games, up to 9 games, that extra that we might have to play in the playoffs, when it could be time where we rest. So yeah, I don't know if they've taken it seriously enough at times. They're obviously betting them themselves, and they think they can go in and play these teams and win, because I think at the moment, I think the Sixers are a half game behind, but it's because they played a game less, and obviously if they win that, then they go top, because they've got that tiebreaker where we kind of threw it a little bit. But yeah, I was going back to what Richard Jefferson said the other week on one of the spaces on Twitter, which Richard Jefferson's another one where you kind of need to take everything with a pinch of salt, but somehow went on national news about his like opinions on playing KD with LeBron. But I was listening into it, and he basically said, he's like, I was on a team with LeBron James, but I still didn't want to play against Kevin Durant. It's like, of course you don't. It's like, this guy's incredible. Why would you want to play against them? And personally, why would you want the Nets to play against Embiid and Giannis? And my opinion's changed massively in what I would like my ideal road to the chip to be. I said before to you, Matt, that I wanted the Knicks, the Celtics, Philly, but no. Now I'd like Charlotte in the first round, the Knicks in the second round, then the Sixers, and yeah, let's take the Phoenix Suns in the finals because I don't want to play anyone else there. But yeah, I just think the easier the matchups we can get in the finals, the better, in my opinion. And I certainly don't want to be playing 7 games in one of the first couple of rounds because our guys will be absolutely knackered.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something we've got to really take into consideration. I think we've said in a previous podcast, if you're finishing second, you're almost certain to face both the Bucks and the Sixers. Finishing first means you almost certainly miss out on one of the pair of them, and you can only hope that would be the case. So I think in terms of the most ideal kind of road to the championship, you're wanting to get that first seed wrapped up. Then, I mean, Charlotte would be fun just to see LaMelo Ball play a lot of nights. You know, I'm a big fan of him. But then, I mean, any of those kind of teams in those kind of play-in spots like the 7, 8, 9, and 10, I'd fancy us to kind of take them quite easily. Then after that, yeah, I'd probably say the Knicks. I think there's been a lot of building kind of just excitement and amongst both fan bases, certainly on Twitter. Or anyway, the Knicks, and then yeah, probably Philly, but the Bucks wouldn't be so bad just to see us match up against Giannis, who's obviously one of the best players in the league. I think that would just be really good. Then as for the finals, I've not kind of thought too far ahead about that yet. The Suns, yeah, that would be all right, but I don't know if I can still look past the Lakers. 100% again. Him and AD have both had injuries this season. It doesn't matter what place they're going to kind of rank in the playoffs and what their seed is. They're still going to be one of the favourites regardless. They can completely turn it up to a different level. So yeah, I mean, I'd quite like a Lakers Nets matchup. Just obviously the kind of reigning champions would be nice to kind of knock them out in the finals, like just doing it that way. But yeah, the Suns would also be a fascinating matchup as well, especially considering how well we played against them last time. So if we managed to get them and play that well, I think that would be a fantastic way to win the title.
Yeah, nice. I think, yeah, I like you. I didn't really think to the NBA finals, but yeah, I think Lakers would be good for the drama, but the Suns, I think, just for just an incredibly entertaining series would be incredible. But just to refresh everyone on how the play-in tournament works, so the 7th plays the 8th seed, and the 9th seed plays the 10th seed. The winner of the 7th, 8th seed match becomes the 7th seed, and the loser of that 7th, 8th match plays the winner of the 9th, 10th match to become the 8th seed. So we'll have to play the winner of the 9th, 10th, and the loser of the 7th, 8th seed. So it feels like they're going to have to play a little bit of basketball to play us anyway. But if the playoffs started today, we'd play the 8th seed, which would be the I can't even remember who that is. But yeah, like you say, Aidan, I'd rather be playing sort of the Hornets, then the Knicks, then Philly, rather than the Heat, then the Bucks, then Philly. So I really, really hope that, I think, 9 games to go now? I think with 9 games to go, I think you play as many healthy, good bodies as you can, and you try to win every game to really sort of get that momentum going. But, you know, what do I know? We shall see. We've seen that people are getting rested left, right, and center and things like that. And we know we probably won't see James Harden until the playoffs. So we're just going to have to sit and be patient. I mean, it's been a big, long rebuild, and we're going to have to be patient for another couple of weeks before we see it all sort of seamlessly come together. But just some other quick little points that have come round. KD won an Oscar, which is mad. Executive producer KD and his business partner Rich Kleiman and Mike Conley won the Oscar for Best Live Action Short Film on Two Distant Strangers. KD and Mike Conley joined Kobe Bryant as the only NBA Oscar winners in history. And some injury updates for this week. Nick Claxton, who was expected to be out a week, then got made available, but now isn't returning. But Bruce Brown is back, but James Harden is still a ways away. What sort of stuff? Is there anything else sort of been catching your guys' eye this week before we head into these game recaps?
I think just how clean our injury report is getting. It was nice to see just 3 players on it. I know Claxton's obviously out, but it does look so much better than when we were up to like 7 and 8 like the last couple of weeks. So yeah, it was nice when they were coming out and reporting that. And obviously we're saying Clax, there's a 95% chance that he's probably not going to play tonight unless there's a pending disaster of some point. But yeah, I just think that it's nice to see it getting a bit cleaner, because I don't think it's looked this clean since like opening night. So yeah, it does feel good to see that we're getting back somewhere. And even though they're saying that Harden's still a ways away from returning, I quite liked what KD said this week as well when he was talking about it. He said that I'm excited for the next few weeks and getting James back. I don't know if that means anything at all, but it sounds like James Harden potentially could be coming back sooner than we might think. So hopefully we see him in the next couple of weeks or so.
Let's just wildly speculate and and just get ourselves excited, I think.
That's like get it on the banner at the bottom. Harden returning next week.
Breaking news.
But just going back to the kind of thing about KD and the All-Star, I'd actually seen a little clip of it on TikTok. It was like one of those part 1, part 2, and it was just, I didn't realise it was KD's, and watched a wee bit of it. I know it's on Netflix, it's about half an hour long. It is on my kind of watch list, and yeah, I mean, given the wee clips I've seen, it is quite good, so I'd recommend if you're wanting to watch it. It's from the little bit I've seen, it was quite interesting. But yeah, as for the injury stuff, obviously fantastic. It's been the kind of bane of our life, and you can't help but wonder how different things would have been if we actually had a fully healthy roster for 90% of the season rather than a healthy roster. Obviously, other teams have injuries, but it just seems, perhaps because we're always watching the Nets, we've had it a little bit worse than everyone else, with especially our stars having many injuries. But yeah, glad that we'll soon have Clarks back on the court. Obviously, big fan. Then Bruce Brown back as well is another boost, and hopefully Harden back soon as well.
Fingers crossed. But it's been, on the court, this Nets team has been holding it down with I think we've had over 30 different starting fives this season already, as Steve Nash kind of tinkers with the personnel. But it seems that we're still doing all right on the court. So we're still in that first seed. I think we're a game and a half ahead of Philly now. Obviously, they still own the tiebreaker. But we'll start the week in Phoenix, where obviously last week we recorded the pod just before tip-off, and that is where we will start our recap this week. So, Cammy, what did you make of the Phoenix game?
So yeah, I mean, I think, as I said kind of earlier on when we were discussing the playoffs, I felt we played absolutely fantastically against one of the best teams in the league, one of the most improved teams in the league. And yes, Devin Booker nearly scored 40 points, but at the same time, DeAndre Ayton started quite well. I think was it 8 or 9 rebounds in the first quarter, and it did kind of seem like one of those nights where we're just going to get absolutely murdered by a centre again. But dealt with him not too badly, and obviously Chris Paul had a bit of a poor night. Maybe, I know he was, I think he averaged 16 points, he got 14, but it just didn't really seem his night, so I was delighted with the way we managed that. Kyrie and KD obviously combining for 67 points. Kai got 34, KD got 33 off the bench in his return, and I think it's made even more impressive by the fact he didn't play at all in the first quarter. He certainly didn't disappoint, and it was just back from injury, but it's just such a delight to see Kevin Durant play basketball and play it to this level. 6 rebounds and 4 assists as well. Want to give a quick shout out to the man that's currently on the screen, and Blake Griffin, 16 points for him, 5 rebounds and 4 assists as he's kind of continued his recent good form. And yeah, I'm buzzing with how he's played. And then I think not necessarily the game, kind of after the game, this was said, KD described us as the measuring stick, and I think that comment, and it seems to have confidence in themselves. That's what you're kind of wanting. We know that we've got really heavy expectations. It'd be easy to crumble under the pressure, but this team really know kind of what they're to be doing. There's no point downplaying things, and I think, yeah, as I said, we played really well against who we could potentially meet in the finals, and we proved ourselves to be one of, if not the best team in the league again. So yeah, really happy with this one. And yeah, that Uncle Jeff dunk, I've just seen it again. He was just
decent, isn't it?
Just Dunkle Jeff at it again. So yeah, buzzing with how that game went, and yeah, can't really complain too much. Great start.
Yeah, Uncle Jeff. I'm with the back-to-back that I'm going to be going through later. I don't think you can say enough about Uncle Jeff, but we'll save that. But we then headed to welcome the Tampa Bay Raptors. Aidan, what did you make of the Raptors game?
Yeah, we finally managed to get a win over the Raptors on Tuesday, which felt like it might not actually happen this year. But yeah, we won the game, but it was one of the strangest games of the season, I actually thought, because we had Kyrie and KD both on the floor, but they both had really quiet nights, which never seems to happen. It always seems to be maybe one of our stars has a quiet night. But yeah, both of them has a bit of a quiet one in this one. But it was mainly down to the fact that the Raptors done such a good job defensively against the Nets. They came out, they were really organised. They were just out there to stop Kevin Durant and Kyrie from scoring. And fair play to them, but unfortunately we've got a really good unit behind these guys that can step up and make up the scoring numbers when maybe nights are getting a bit quiet. Sorry, 2 seconds. There we go. But yeah, two vets that stepped up in this one, Jeff Green and Blake Griffin, who led the scoring for us. Jeff had 22 points, Blake had 17 points, but it wasn't just their offensive impact. They both had some really important plays on both ends of the court, which managed to get this one done. But yeah, we talked about him earlier, but Mike James had an extremely clutch fourth quarter where he was the only net on the court to actually be on the court for the full 12 minutes of the quarter, which I found quite interesting. He only finished with 11 points and 8 assists. But the thing that I loved about his performance is the maturity that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving showed. And they saw that they were being crossed out, they were being double teamed when they were, so they just let Mike James make the plays. And he'd done really, really well. He was just excellent in general. He was passing the ball superbly, he wasn't turning the ball over, and only shooting when he actually needed to. But yeah, I don't know where Cammy's disappeared off to. He seems to have...
He's chipped off somewhere.
Oh, there he goes. He's coming back.
He's coming.
But yeah, obviously, the big news story after this one, as you mentioned earlier, Matt, was that this was the game that clinched the playoff spot for the Nets. And we all knew it was going to happen eventually, but it was really sweet going on the standings afterwards and seeing that X next to Brooklyn, which I really liked. And we were all having a bit of fun on Twitter, putting X's next to their names. And I think it's still at that stage now where we are still a team where we were fans of the team in the dark days, which were only a couple of years ago. So we can still enjoy these moments, which is really nice. And the fact that we can still enjoy the simplicity of getting your playoff space place guaranteed is really, really nice. And it just shows that we are still so grateful for how well the team are playing at the moment. But yeah, in general, the team played really well. And yeah, the Raptors played really well in this as well, but it just shows our level now that we can go out there and beat teams like this despite them putting in a really solid effort.
Yeah, it's nice to get that Raptors monkey off our back. Yeah, really, really great to see. And that leads us on to this week's back-to-back. It seems we're always sort of having a back-to-back with someone, but it started off in Indiana against the Pacers, where the Nets were able to pull off pretty convincing win. An all-round good sort of team performance that sealed the season sweep of the Indiana Pacers. No Kyrie or James Harden in this one. Kyrie nursing a groin strain, apparently. But you know, what happens when the opposing team just has to concentrate on KD? All the net starters score in double digits. Jeff Green, as we said, who seems to have a highlight dunk every game at the age of 34, had 14 points, as did Landry Shamet and Joe Harris. Tyler Johnson had 11. And KD, well, KD sort of went a bit crazy, finishing the game with 42 points and 10 assists on 66% from the floor, 50% from three, 100% from the line, only two turnovers. The man had 22 points in the third quarter alone. He's absolutely on fire. For a guy that I think I saw that he's not played more than 7 games in a row together all season, is ridiculous. His feel for the game, the way that he can just kind of step in off such a long layoff is incredible. He just doesn't seem to stop being great, and it's incredible to see. I don't think he's human, but we saw a bit of point KD this game with those 10 assists. He had a really nice kind of drive in and like a underhand shovel pass to Alize Johnson for a nice kind of open dunk, which was really nice. And talking about Alize Johnson, he had himself a game, 20 points, 21 rebounds off the bench, really showing that he deserved that money, man. He deserved that extended contract, especially considering that he himself had also missed the last 3 games due to health and safety protocols. It is sort of worth noting that the Pacers were without Domantas Sabonis, without Miles Turner, without TJ Warren. Malcolm Brogdon left halfway through the 3rd or something and didn't return. But it did leave our guy, Karis LeVert, to lead the team with 36 points. But, you can't be mad at Karis for scoring points. We'll let him off. But it's one of those where every net seemed to find their stride early. And just another example of Brooklyn's sort of how they go early is kind of how they tend to go for the rest of the game. But what happened here is that we didn't peter out. We kind of started well, and we just kind of kept that hammer down and secured this blowout victory. It seems we get new stats every time, but this is the second time in franchise history that the Nets sit 23 games above 500. The only other Nets team to do that were the 01-02 New Jersey Nets that just so happened to have made it to the final. After the game, KD said 6 guys in double figures, 35 assists as a team, only 13 turnovers as a team. The opposing team shot 42% from the field, and that's pretty much the game for us. Out-rebounded them too, so when we do that, we're in good shape. More assists, more rebounds, hold them to a low percentage. That's a good performance to us. And I think, it sounds quite simplistic, but, when you put it like that, it's pretty easy. That's all you got to do. But it wasn't quite so easy on this second half of the back-to-back where the Nets welcomed the Portland Trailblazers to Barclays Center, taking the L 128-109. As I say, wasn't quite as rosy for the second half of the back-to-back, with Damian Lillard hurting us from deep and Yusuf Nurkic doing a great job inside. The Nets kind of started off cold and then kind of got within touching distance before the half. But it's just one of those, we ran out of steam. With Harden still out, KD fresh off that 42-point performance from the night before, he was rested. So it was Kyrie's turn to be that solo scary hours member. But he scored 28 points, didn't really get to the line as much as he typically does. But, not even he could save this Nets team from going cold for a few stretches. And unfortunately, this one just got away from us. Shout out to Jeff Green again, who finished up with 16 points and 6 rebounds, and our guy Mike James for his 15 points and 3 assists off the bench. Fair play to Portland. They're in the play-in tournament over in the West, so I think they're 7th or something when we played them. So they've obviously got a lot to play for. So we knew they were gonna bring it. And even though it's against your team, Logo Lillard is always kind of entertaining, any. So it's even though they're going in against your team, I think I've just been desensitized about him pulling up. Literally, it's like sort of Steph Curry, like they're just within range as soon as they get over that halfway point. So yeah, it's just one of those. But I think what was the week was 3-1, so can't really grumble at that. Still got that 1 seed, historic levels of our season record in terms of wins. So not a bad time to be a Nets fan. So that was it in terms of the games that we've been playing this week. So now it's time for listener questions. Thanks so much to everyone for coming through for the listener questions. But we're going to go straight forward to Jack Manuel, friend of the show, Jack Manuel from the Brooklyn Buzz. He says, you got in touch on Twitter. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at UK Nets Fans or at BK2UK Pod. He says, are you guys worried about the absence of Nick Claxton? Who wants to go on that one first?
I'll take this one first, and I'm not sure if I'd say I was worried about his absence. Of course, worried that a player's out. You do always have concerns when a player's out injured, but I wouldn't say I'm that worried that he's been out. Obviously, we've kind of, in his time with the team, he's had long periods out, and when you consider how he came in, he performed well above expectations, and it's been really unfortunate. It's not been anything that could have really been avoided given the health and safety stuff. It does seem like he may have been one of the players to have contracted COVID, so when you really can't do anything about that. So, worried to an extent, but you just want to see him get better, and hopefully he's back soon. I'd say more than being worried, I am really excited just to have him back, given the kind of potential and just kind of what he'd shown when he did come into the team. It was a breath of fresh air, and I think he took everyone really by surprise. I don't think one of us, or many at all, really expected Clax to perform like he has on some nights. He's a player with clearly an abundance of potential, and just looking forward to starting again, because with another name on available to Nash, I'm sure he'll manage to probably get us close to about 50 unique lineups this year. So hopefully he's back sooner than later, and we can get him kind of performing and just up to speed. Because I think a bit of, I don't know if you'd maybe say a secret weapon in the playoffs, but certainly a player that I think teams will need to pay a close eye on, and obviously he helps us out defensively as well. So hopefully he's back soon, and hopefully as well.
Yeah, I think you could probably put 2 and 2 together and say that Nicholas Claxton probably did have COVID, because just the period of time that he was actually out. Obviously we've had players that have been out for protocols already, where obviously we've seen KD, and the Nets have always been really open about it, and they said, he's been in contact with so-and-so, he doesn't have COVID, but unfortunately these are just the rules. How hush they've been on this one says a lot, I think. And I think the only piece of information we really got from Nash was that it was related to that trip to Miami. That's all we had. So, you can dig deeper if you want, but what's the point? At the end of the day, he's either playing or he's not. I'd say the only worry is that if he has had COVID, it's how it potentially has affected him. The fact that he was off the injury report today is a good sign. Obviously we've had some information coming out recently about kind of Jason Tatum saying that he's on an inhaler and things like that. You never want to see that from young guys in the league, young healthy guys in the league, but it does show how much it can affect players. So hopefully he's out of it now, and he's just getting back up to speed, because we know that obviously he does come in and play so hard. You see him there being kind of out of breath, like with how much work he actually puts in when he's playing. So I'm not surprised that they're taking a bit of time to get him back up to fitness and a few training sessions first of all before getting him back in. Like Cammy, I can't wait to have him back in. I think we really have missed him and Bruce Brown since they've been out, especially defensively. Obviously they aren't the most kind of gifted offensive players, but they are definitely 2 of the best defenders in the team, and we have suffered at times because we've not been able to get them on, and some other guys have had to step up. So it's, again, we talk about the Nets having an embarrassment of riches, but we only really have that embarrassment of riches when everyone's playing. So it is good to have these players back, so it does give us a few more options. So the sooner the better in my eyes as well.
Yeah, obviously he's not played since the 18th of April against the Heat on that obviously Miami trip, scoring 4 points and 6 rebounds in 23 minutes. It's one of those. So many injuries have come and gone in that kind of short space of time. I had to remind myself what had gone on, and obviously Matt Brooks is an incredible Nets writer, and he reported on Nets Daily some words that Steve Nash said. He said, Nick is back and working out. He'll probably need a ramp-up period for him. Don't expect to see Nick for at least a week. He's healthy, but he just needs to get his fitness. Obviously, wasn't included in the injury for tonight's game, so I kind of got excited when people aren't included, but then he's obviously not going to play. So why wouldn't they say out injury recovery, which like they've been doing all season with KD and Kyrie and things like that? And if ramping up isn't injury recovery, I know he wasn't technically injured, but it was like out conditioning or out game shape, or also there's got to be some sort of if you're not on the injury report and you're available, there's got to be some sort of middle ground, I think. But yeah, he must have tested positive. He must have had a worse response to it, because I think, Reggie Perry got tested the same time and it sort of went into these protocols at the same time. Obviously, he came back a lot quicker. From a team perspective, I'm not that worried. Obviously, our defensive ceiling is a lot higher with him on the floor and Bruce Brown, as you were saying. But I just want to see him getting more playing time as we ramp off to these playoffs. The only thing that Nick Claxton lacks is experience. And playing alongside Blake or DJ and KD is only going to make him better. But yeah, so I'm not worried for us as a whole, but I think to get the best version of Nick Claxton, I would love to see him playing more. Because he's a young guy, young lad as well. So it's not like you have to. He's in his mid-30s, and it's like, well, we're saving him for the playoffs. He's in he hasn't even hit the prime of his life yet. So I don't really see the excuse. But that's they have a professional team of sports sports doctors. I can't remember, physios and things, and the health team. My brain doesn't work. But yeah, I would love, give me more Claxton. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Give me more Claxton. So I hope that answers that one. Next up on the listener questions comes in from Sam on our Discord. We've got a wicked Discord community. If you're a Nets fan in the UK, send me a DM and I'll grab you an invite link to our Discord channel, which, we chat Nets and basketball all week. So definitely get involved. He says, which of the current roster has the most chance of becoming a cult hero in years to come? I want to jump in first, because I think these are going to be quite popular opinions, but I've just got a top three. I've got Nick Claxton, who we've just spoken about. I've got Bruce Brown and Alize Johnson. I think we even sort of weirdly, even in an era where we've got KD, Kyrie, and James Harden, three huge superstars, we are all still super keen on the progression of these bit part players. And I think that's just a hangover from like the bubble nets era and that kind of scrappy underdog era. So that's my three that I think have got it in the tank. I think, Nick Claxton, I think they're all kind of cult heroes already. But I think in terms of being able to make a meaningful contribution to this team, Claxton, Bruce Brown, and Alize Johnson are my three. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think you're pretty much bang on the money, Matt. I'd say Claxton as well, just purely because obviously the fan base, this Nets fan base, love a homegrown talent, someone that's been drafted here. We saw it with, I'd class Caris and I'd class Jared Allen as cult heroes, and they were both obviously drafted with us, and you do tend to get attached to these type of players. But I think Claxton as well, for kind of off the court stuff, I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. I mean, from what I've heard, he's a really, really funny guy, and I think as well from that, I try to remember what game it was when he done the post-match interview, and he was just like, he put the headset on, he was like, "What's popping, y'all?" And I was just like, from that moment, I was like, this guy is just an absolute beast. But no, big fan of his. But yeah, he's maybe too good to be referred to as a cult hero, because usually it's kind of that guy underneath that's kind of there. He's kind of quite a popular character. But yeah, I think he's going to be a star. And I personally, I don't know about you guys, I actually class him in higher regard than when we had Caris and Jared Allen. I think he's going to be way better than those guys. So really excited for him. Only other one that I was potentially would say is Landry Shamet, just because he's been playing amazing. If he carries that on, he'll probably be regarded in the same category as what Joe Harris is. I mean, we love a 3-point shooter in the Nets fan base, and if he can continue to do that and stay with the Nets, then yeah, we've got another one. So yeah, I'll say Claxton or Shamet for me.
I'm going to go with Bruce Brown. I think, as you said, Aidan, with Clax, he's kind of too good for that cult hero status. Bruce Brown obviously has had some really good games this season. They had that kind of career. It was just really wholesome, and that in itself is kind of cult hero worthy. Just seeing that he's not a player who regularly does that, whereas I think Clax in a few years' time could be a player who quite regularly hits 20, 25 plus points each night. But yeah, Bruce Brown, provided he stays past the end of this season, I think his deal is up. I think he definitely has the potential. I think a lot of fans love the energy he brings, and I think that's massively appreciated. So yeah, I think Alize Johnson is another shout, like you said, Matt. I think when you're able to, it's just mad. He's had one or two nights where he's scored a decent amount of points, but yeah, when you're able to grab balls like that, that's something that I think can also earn you cult hero status. So yeah, I think if I was to just whittle it down to one, it's got to be Bruce Brown. Just Aidan, you were saying obviously Clax has been a funny guy. If you've seen some of Bruce Brown's lives, he just seems like quite a funny guy as well. So I'll say Bruce Brown for my cult hero pick.
Nice. I think Alize Johnson's got a great shout. If you're an old school Brooklyn Nets fan, you'll remember Reggie Evans, who was just sort of all he did was get rebounds, and he was just a bundle of energy. And Alize Johnson reminds me of like a young Reggie Evans in that kind of in that regard, but can also, if he turns into a 20 and 20 guy, that'd be absolutely incredible. And I think we got, another 3 years under, and he's under 2 million on all those 3 years. So he could be another incredibly valuable and player that outperforms the money we're paying him. So yeah, really cool. Sam, Jack, thank you very much for your questions. If you guys have any questions for us that you want to hear answered on the pod, get in touch with us on the socials. We'll be more than happy to answer your questions. But now there's nothing else to do but to preview the week ahead. As we say, we are about 10 minutes away as we record from the tip-off of the first Bucks game from this week. So we have Sunday against the Bucks, Tuesday against the Bucks, Thursday against the Dallas Mavericks, and rounding off the week on Saturday against the Denver Nuggets. How do you guys think will fare in this week coming up?
I think this is potentially the hardest week we'll face all season, and that I might even stretch that to including the playoffs, because I think when you're facing the Bucks, who've been a fantastic regular season, kind of twice in a few nights, I think that's going to be a very difficult one. Thankfully, it's not a back-to-back, so there shouldn't be any rested players. It'll be nice to kind of see KD, Kyrie, and Giannis all kind of go at it against each other. I think this is a fantastic game, and again, I think it's a real chance, like KD says, to kind of continue to be that measuring stick to really prove ourselves. And I think if we can beat the Bucks over kind of both legs, kind of thing of this week, I think it'll certainly make me a bit more confident heading into the playoffs, knowing that we can beat one of the kind of best teams in our conference. The Mavs also have Luka Doncic, one of the best young players and one of the best players in general in the league. And I think, yeah, that'll be a difficult one. Then the Nuggets on Saturday will be another fantastic game of Nikola Jokic. I think, yeah, it's difficult. I'll say 2-2. I think that's maybe me being a bit negative, but then if we do any better, it'll make me feel that bit better. So I'll say 2-2 on the basis that I'm hoping we do better. And yeah, I think, as I say, a really difficult week ahead, but hopefully we can come through it relatively unscathed and we kind of stay in touch with one, extend the lead at the top.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Cammy. I thought it was the toughest week we've had in a long time, but you're probably right. It is probably the toughest week of the season, even going back to that West Coast road trip. I don't think it was as hard as this one, but yeah, you're right. No back-to-backs is a huge boost. I mean, looking at that week, it's so nice to not see any two games together, especially when you've got 4 tough games like that. And the fact that we probably won't be resting these players because there's no back-to-back. I actually fancy our chances in them, and obviously we've rose our game in a lot of these tougher games and jumped to the occasion, and I hope we can for these ones. But yeah, if we want to target that first place, we'll soon learn about it this week, because I think we need to actually win all of these ones and hope that Philly slip up somewhere this week, because they've got a couple of games, I think, against San Antonio and Chicago, and you've got to think that's probably their tougher ones that they've got. If you want to call them tough, they've got quite an easy run. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the Bucks, obviously we played really well against them earlier on the season, but that was obviously with James Harden. Huge boost having Bruce Brown back for defensive reasons. And I think we could take both of these games if we play correctly. I mean, I've no idea how Giannis is probable for this one after spraining his ankle like 3 or 4 days ago. I mean, I put in the Discord earlier, if he was playing for the Nets, he probably wouldn't have been out for like 2 or 3 weeks. So
out to no
idea. How does that happen? Like, he sprained his ankle 3 nights ago. It's mad. But yeah, it'll be an interesting one. And I think yeah, I think tonight and on Tuesday we've got a really good chance of beating them, just purely because I think Kyrie and KD will do really well, especially after watching Drew Holiday's performance against a young Kevin Porter Jr. the other night. We let him put up 50 points. So who knows what Kyrie Irving can do against Drew Holiday tonight? We'll wait and see. But yeah, the Mavs game, great point about Doncic. It's always exciting to watch him play, Cammy. But yeah, this is a must-win game for both teams because the Mavs need to keep winning, so they don't want to drop back into that play-in spot. And they've taken over the Lakers now, and I think they're in 5th now in the West. So it's one of those situations, and I think between 4 and 8 in the West, where I think they need to just keep winning, or else there's a good chance that they'll be playing in the play-in tournament. And there's some really good teams in there, so it's not going to be easy. But in terms of the Nuggets game, finally, I think that's one that we could easily drop just after a tough week. But weirdly enough, I do feel like there's a chance that the Clippers and the Nuggets could start tanking and resting with the last few games of the season, just because if whoever finishes, I think, in 4th, will play against the Mavs at the moment, and whoever finishes in 3rd plays against the Lakers. And I don't know about you, but I'd much rather play the Mavs in the first round than the Lakers. So that could be a boost for us. So potentially, probably not, but that's something to keep an eye on. But yeah, they've pretty much secured home court advantage. So yeah, good news as well. They'll be playing on the second half of a back-to-back in that one. So yeah, another boost for the Nets, where it feels like we've always been the team coming off into the back-to-backs against the tough ones. So yeah, let's go 4-0. Let's get that 1 seed. Why not?
Yeah, I'm all in as well. Obviously, last time we played the Bucks, we beat them. Obviously, James Harden leading the way with 34. KD also had 30. Joe Harris had 20, going 5 of 7 from 3. So that was a really, really good game. Obviously, we've played all these teams before, so we've played Denver as well. But when we played Denver, Jarrett Allen was in the starting lineup, so that is a completely different team. And the only time we've played the Mavs last time was in a losing effort, but we kind of had, I think, a lot of players injured. We didn't have KD, Kyrie in that game. And that was, again, a long time ago. It's weird, isn't it? Like, in the same season, it can just feel like an absolute lifetime ago when we actually play these teams. So I think given the momentum we're facing, given the predicament we're in, with actually needing to get more guys some serious basketball time, I think we're going to be a little bit more invested in carrying some winning momentum into these playoffs. And like you said, that tanking point is great as well. I think maybe there's a chance that some of these players do take the night off, do have a bit of a rest, and yeah, save themselves for the playoffs, which will do us some favors. So I'm going to go 4-0 as well. Just keep the good times coming, I think. And we'll get out of here with some positivity. And that'll do us for tonight. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of BKT UK. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe, rate, review the podcast. If you've got that available on your platform, head to teespring.com/stores/UK Nets fans, where you can buy some merch. Get us on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, everything. And yeah, it's a great time to be a Nets fan. So let's go Nets. We'll speak to you next week. See you later.